Hello and welcome back to the Big Knot Knitting Podcast. It's been a while, a hot minute, if you will. My name is Bree. You can find me as Big Knot Knitting on Instagram and Ravelry. And this is my knitting podcast, my little break from all the engineering studenting that I do on my daily, where I can come here and geek out about yarn. I have taken a bit, a month-ish break, which was unintentional. I just got a little disheartened with what I was doing. My knitting mojo crashed, and then school started back up, and I just didn't get around to filming. Technically, there's a lot more to it, but I don't really want to start boo-hooing about comparing myself to other people, so I'm not going to. I also have a lab in 40 minutes, so I have to keep this somewhat brief. So we're gonna move on. But if you hear whining in the background, that would be the puppy. Yes, you. She's upset that I ate lunch without her, and she's offended. I don't know if she'll decide to make an appearance. I think she might just sit there and pout. Anyway, I'm going to jump right into the knitting content because, like I said, now that school has started, I don't have the same kind of time to go on for an hour and a half. And I have a lot to talk about. So first, I am wearing my Barcode by Jody Brown. It is a DK weight garter and mosaic shawl. Only I held sport weight double and had a yardage issue, and so mine is actually seamed together into a giant cowl because otherwise it wasn't going to stay on my neck, but that was just my problem. And this is a Sachermeyer. I think it's a Regia, but it's like a fuzzy alpaca. So it's got a halo to it. Some fuzz. Yeah. Behind me is the top of my ombre puff quilt. It has become unofficially the dog's bed. So I think the backing I use, or was going to use, is actually going to become a garment. It's really nice, 80s-esque pink and blue Ruby and Star Society, and if it's going to become the dog's blanket, I'm going to use that nice fabric for something I'll use more. I can tell she knows I'm talking about her. She keeps side-eyeing me. Anyway, I'm going to jump into finished objects because I've cracked my sock code problem and I have a pair of socks. So I have an issue with knitting socks. They take me decades, and if you're hoping to see my sea turtle evil twins, you're going to be disappointed. These are not them. They have seen no progress since the last podcast. I have, however, cracked the code. Worsted weight socks are where it's at. So these are knit out of Hello Stella, and this was a collaboration with the Grocery Girls. They're a fantastic knitting podcast here on YouTube, and they're kind of local, they're a 3-hour drive from where I live, so I've actually had the opportunity to meet them. But this sock set was to raise money for the Black Lives Matter movement, so naturally, neon, good cause. I bought the fingering weight sock set with good intentions, and then realized I will never knit them, and I own 2 or 3 other sock sets that I'm also gonna never get around to knitting. So then I was like, what if I hold them double and knit cushy worsted weight socks? And so that's what I've done. But additionally, you might recognize the pattern on these socks, hand socks. This is Tracy of the Grocery Girls. This is her shepherdess sock pattern. At least the stitch pattern with the little pearl bumps running down the length. Basically, I have a pattern I bought a couple of years ago at a local yarn store. It's like a printed worsted weight sock pattern. I took it, added a couple of extra stitches so that I had the right number to do the repeats of Tracy's stitch pattern, and then put Tracy's stitch pattern onto the modified work sock pattern that I have. So I cast on 48 stitches on US 6s, which I don't know what those are in millimeters because I don't know why. Anyway, sorry for the coughing. I had spicy peanut noodles and now my throat is full of sticky peanut sauce. Anyway, so I just modified it so there are fewer repeats but the same number of stitches, or same multiple of stitches, and then gave them matching but not matching heels and toes. So those are my shepherdess worsted socks. I also apologize for my Discord making noises. I'm going to quickly mute that for a second. There you go, problem solved. Alright, so now to introduce my second finished object, which will then lead into half objects. My boyfriend's mom, Glenda, was very sweet, and while they were in Fernie, she visited this yarn store and came across this book and was like, I'm gonna bring that home for Brie. And so she did. And I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. Nessie, stop. She's trying to eat my noodles. Or lick the empty container. And so this is Saltwater Mittens by Christine LeGros and Shirley Scott. It is Newfoundland colorwork mittens, or Newfoundland inspired colorwork mittens. It has all the history, funny little slang terms, and a bunch of patterns. So I decided for Christmas I would knit people colorwork mittens. So this first pair is finished, blocked, weaved in the ends. Look at me, I'm weaving in ends and blocking. It's a gift for a friend. I've technically sent her a sneak peek. So this is for my friend Solana. Solana, if you're watching this, these are your mittens. If you don't want them spoiled, skip. But I knit her the Bacalhau mitten, which has this fun little almost tartan-like colorwork pattern up the hand. And then it's a full mitten. And I have a complete set. I actually haven't tried them on since blocking, and they're a lot roomier than they were before. But they're super cute. I'm not going to show them for too long, just in case she does watch this, but they are a worsted weight mitten. I'm using the same brand that the pattern recommends, only they recommend Regal in a few spots, and my local yarn store only has Heritage, but they're both worsted weights, so I'm just using them interchangeably. But this is Briggs & Little Heritage. I'm using Natural White and Spruce Green, I believe, were these colors. And so those are the first pair. I fully intend to knit seven gift pairs and then a pair for myself. So that is one of 7. Then the second one is a half object. I have yet to cast on the second one, and this one still has ends. This is for my friend Adara. So Adara, if you are watching and don't want it spoiled, skip ahead. But these are the Spring Ice Trigger Mittens. So they have kind of like a, it's supposed to be a cube, but I see like DNA twirls. And they are called trigger mittens because theoretically you could fire a gun still while wearing these mittens. I think they should be called alien hand. But this is knit in gold and medium gray, I believe. So I just have the second one to go for that. And then I will have 2 of 7 pairs done. And then I'll do my other accessory whip and then get into sweaters. My friends and I hand dyed yarn together. I showed this on the live streamed episode, so you can go back and find that one if you haven't seen it yet. But we knit this color together, or dyed this color together, and I decided to call it September Goodbyes because the friends I dyed it with both go out east for university every year, so they leave every summer, and we dyed it shortly before they both headed home. This yellow is Sea Turtle Fiber Arts in their discontinued MCN Sport Weight in the color Buttercup. And these are for my friend Solana again. She helped dye the yarn, but she doesn't knit in a capacity where she could have made herself something. So she asked me if I would make her socks and send them to her. So I'm just knitting her very basic worsted weight socks so that it just shows the yarn without detracting from the yarn. And it's kind of like a muted fall tone, jewel tone rainbow. And it was completely unintentional. The really pretty raspberry was Solana's color, and it looked like swamp water when we put it in the pot. And then as it heated up, it turned raspberry red, and it's like the prettiest shade I will never be able to reproduce. But anyway, that is my other accessory work in progress. It's on hold for now because I need the 6s for it as well, and the mittens are all knit on US 6s. So these are sitting on hold on a US 7. Now there is a third sweater. I'm not going to show it because he watches the whole way through and he will spoil it for himself. He knows I'm knitting him a sweater. My boyfriend Marcus is very knit worthy, so I've decided to knit him a sweater for Christmas. And he knows that much. But I won't show it because he doesn't know the color and I've switched the pattern. I don't want to spoil that either. But initially it was going to be the My Guy sweater by Wool and the Gang. I bought the kit, so it's Wool and the Gang. I don't remember the name of it, but it's like 100% superwash alpaca. It's like, or superwash merino rather. It's their like machine washable yarn, even though I don't think I would put it in the washing machine, but you know, that's what they brand it as. I'd started knitting the My Guy pattern and you jump from size US 4 needles to 10.5. I was like, how do you do that without having like intermediate ones to start building up to the 10.5? Because I couldn't get the stitches to move on the 10.5. So that frustrated me, and then the 10.5 with the weight of yarn that the kit sends you was like fishnetty, and I was like, this isn't happening. So I ripped out like a week of work to start it over. I'm knitting a sweater I've already knit before, but he wouldn't know. If I said the name, he probably wouldn't be able to find it, but I'm not going to. And I am liking it. I have made up the progress in like 3 days, so it's fine. But I'm not showing that one so I don't spoil it. The mittens, I'm pretty sure the friends I'm making the mittens for don't watch, and if they do, I'm hoping they skip ahead. So, it's been a hot minute since I've showed my Zweig on here. This is the Zweig by Caitlin Hunter. It is a fingering weight, color work, lace work, cable work, yoke sweater. I have finally made it. I have literally just finished the lace and cable panel. I do have a few spots that now I can't find, of course, where my cables aren't in the right spots. There's one in here, but it's really hard to tell unless you're familiar with the chart. But basically you have two twists. They're supposed to sit like this. Somehow I screwed it up and I have a handful that sit like this. Because I noticed, but I was already like 6 rows past it, and I was not ripping back 6 rows of twisted knits and like eyelets and decreases and increases. So I just went, screw it. And then I just made sure the cables were in the right place the second time around. It's not super noticeable, so it's not going to bother me. The yarn for this sweater is, the purple is Olan singles in boots, and the neon is La Bien Aimé's Howl and Sophie colorway from her Miyazaki collection. Also on her singles base. I'm pretty sure they might be using the identical singles base because they feel the same, they drape the same, which means that the whole sweater is very consistent. And yes, I am knitting a sweater in singles. I know that means it'll probably ply. It's not going to be nearly as durable, but it's not the end of the world for me. I tend to be fairly gentle on my nice knits. So yeah. Now that I'm looking at it against me, I'm hoping it's big enough, but I'm sure it'll be fine. It's squished on the needles. Anyway, so that's my swag. I'm almost, it has a little cabled X pattern down the body, but I figure for like brainless, I'm in the middle of class craziness knitting, I'm going to omit the X's and I'm just going to do stockinette. Otherwise it'll never get finished and I'll like grow to resent it, so I'm just going to do stockinette. So then my last whip is my second Cozy Classic Raglan, knit in my own hand dyed. This is the yarn I dyed in my Dye With Me video. So if you're interested in the process that it took to make this pooled Velma-y orange with specks of teal and everything else, you can check out that video. I changed the increases. Jessie May has you do lifted increases, and I could do them the first time, but this time my brain just couldn't. So instead I just did yarn overs to make like an eyelet chain, and I think it's very pretty. I'm also not doing the tubular on this one. I found the tubular on my other ones a little snug, so I'm just doing loose, stretchy cast-ons and cast-offs. But I think I'm going to knit the body for a few more inches and then have it be like cropped for on top of dresses and high-waisted pants. But it's very squishy. I believe this yarn base was Gathering Yarn Vanillo? I don't remember. I do say it in the dye video because I still had the label at that point. But this is my hand-dyed, hand-knit sweater. Very autumny, so I'm hoping I can get it finished soon. So that is it for the whips that I've been working on that I can remember working on. And for my finished objects, I did acquire some stash. I've talked about the orange stranded that I ordered. It arrived, but I didn't bother pulling it out because it's buried somewhere in my stash. Additionally, to go with these mittens, I needed 2 skeins for every mitten of Briggs & Little Heritage. So, and I'm knitting myself a pair as well, so that's, I think, something like 16 skeins of Briggs & Little are sitting in my room right now. Although 2 of them are half skeins now, and 2 of them are like 3/4 skeins. So those are all in my room. I'm going to leave them there just because, like, they show the color combos, and I don't want to go telling everyone who's getting one, here are your options. And not everyone who's getting one knows they're getting one. But some of my color choices might be pretty clear to certain people if they're getting one or not, you know what I mean? So I'm going to keep those under wraps until I'm finished them, and then I'll just preface with so-and-so don't look, like I did with the last 2. But I do have some planning. I want to do some stash busting, and I have a lot of sweaters. I've been looking at my shelf going, girl, do you need more? And the answer is always going to be yes. But I want to stash bust with some stuff where it was like my options were knit a fingering weight sweater, and I was not feeling that. Or I don't have quite enough to make a sweater, or I'd have to do some weird combo or some substitution or whatever. Or where I just had single skeins. And then Stephen West announced his mystery knit along, which he does every year. If you're not familiar, Stephen West is the designer behind West Knits. Oh, the dog is upset again. And he does like crazy, colorful, patterned, fun designs. And I've never knit one, but his construction, I've been told, is super interesting. Oh my goodness, puppy's upset. Come here, Ness. Come here. Come here. Come on, don't hide behind the camera. Come, what's this? Come here. Come here. You want it? You have to come get it. Come here. No, come here. Come here. Come on. Oh, she's too sneaky. I was gonna try to get her. Anyway, he does a knit along where every week for a month you get a clue. And you have no idea what the shawl is going to look like. You just have a clue, and then you're told, do it. Do week 1 within week 1, and then week 2, and it's a whole like community thing. There's a Ravelry thread for it, and I've never done a mystery knit along, and I've never knit a Stephen West shawl. Apparently Nessie's quite upset about that. So I'd been playing around in my stash for skeins. This shawl requires 5 fingering weight skeins, 2 that are the same color, and then 3 contrasting colors. I guess technically you could do like 3 of the same color and have all your contrast be the same, but I don't know what the shawl is going to look like. So if you're striping or something, you might need all of them to be different from the 2 that are supposed to be the same. So think I've settled on my palette, but I'd love opinions. I think I talked about putting these in a sweater with the orange from Stranded, but I'm not going to do that anymore. This is Woolen Boon Paper Tiger on the Boon Skinny base, which is a 100% superwash. It's just a soft yellow with like flecks of reds. It's very, very gentle. It's a very soft color. So I think that will be my main, because I do have 2 of them. They were a Christmas gift from Glenda again. She feeds my knitting habit quite well. I'm very thankful for these skeins. Then a Christmas gift from my mom was Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles in Bollywood, which is a cherry magenta red with little bits of teal and some purples. There's even some like greeny gold hidden in there. So then that would be I'm actually just going to do that. So that'd be my next color. And then I picked this up in a D-stash. She is no longer dying. But this is Boss Lady Yarn Co.'s Miss Independent base, which is her singles base, in Phasma, which I believe is named after the Stormtrooper from the newest Star Wars trilogy. And it's very Sith Jedi, dark moody gray with like the black and crimson speckles. So, put those three together. And then to help tie in the yellow, but also still tie to the red, I ordered this a couple of weeks ago. She was doing a D-stash as well, and I bought, she decided she wasn't going to knit this shawl. She didn't want it anymore. She was basically going to sell it to whoever wanted to just pay for shipping. So I ordered the shawl, which is the Reina shawl by Andrea Mowry. It's a brioche shawl in a Homespun House's Nurtured and Velvet on her sock base. So super lucky. I just only paid shipping for it. And that was from Ruby and Rose's Yarn, Addison of Ruby and Roses. She's amazing. She has a podcast, she dyes her own yarn, and she's like 17. It's crazy. Definite like crafty girl envy there. She also spins and sews. Yeah, she's a full package. I would very much like to become knitting friends with her, but anyway. She also dyes yarn, as I've mentioned, and I was in her shop anyway. So I snagged a skein of Butterbeer. This is a vintage label. She has just replaced them, so the labels are different now. This is technically vintage. And this is her Plump Rose base, which is an 80/20 superwash or merino nylon. And this is the color Butterbeer. So it's this gold with the lighter zones, but then it also has crimsony magenta speckles. So I figure yellow ties the main color, which then ties the crimson, and the crimson ties the gray. And then I have a little pop of teal in there because that's fun. So I think that's going to be my sort of, only one of these is a new acquisition. These are all like almost year-old stash. So this is kind of a stash buster, slip strip Ganza, is that what it's called? Stephen West make along. So I do plan to cast that on, so if you're planning to join, you could drop a comment and let me know what your colors are going to be, what you think of my colors, if you'd sub any of them, you know? And then I have just a few more minutes before I have to jet to class, so my last plan is Pip and Pin, Melissa, I want to say, of Pip and Pin, just released the Cat Bells cardigan. She had previously released the Cat Bell sweater, and I remember looking at it going, this is super cute, maybe I'd knit it, and then for some reason I never did. But I stumbled upon her podcast by accident, like the week before she released, and she was sneak peeking this cardigan, and I was like, whoa, that is what I need. Because if any of you have been watching and you've seen the Fuzzy Brown Disaster cardigan, my Le Pouf cardigan, knit in mohair and fingering, that has seen no love since forever, I'm not a huge fan of the knit, purl, part of cardigans, and I'm a little afraid of steeking still. And I also think for like something that's not color work or cables, I don't know if I'd want to steek, because it's like then you're like adding an extra step to something that's not necessarily easier in the round. But Cat Bells, the parts that are knit flat are in garter stitch, so you're not purling the garter at all. The button band, instead of having you pick up and knit ribbing, It's worked into the stitching you do down the body. You don't come back and do a button band. It's already there. The sleeves are stockinette, but they are picked up and knit in the round. It's perfect. The only little bit you do is the ribbing on the cuffs and then the pockets. It's like the dream cardigan, and I know I would wear the hell out of a hand knit cardigan, but for some reason I just haven't made one. And then I was thinking, man, I am loving this Briggs & Little yarn. It's beautiful. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar, Briggs & Little is Canada's oldest wool mill. They are based out on the East Coast. Does it say on the label how old they are? No, but they are in New Brunswick. And they have been around for a very, very, very long time. So their wool is, I believe it's just 100% wool. I don't even think the label says. Yeah, just 100% pure wool. And I think the wool might even be Canadian, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, I was like, this yarn is beautiful. It's like, definitely, I could tolerate it next to skin, but I wouldn't call it next to skin. I'm pretty tolerable. For most people, it probably wouldn't be. Although the blocked mittens are actually quite nice. They're very soft, but they still have that like dense, woolly texture to them. Like, my hands don't itch, and it's definitely much nicer blocked, but it's still a little scratchy. It's definitely old school. But I'm really liking, because I usually knit with, like, if you couldn't tell, superwash merino, and I often knit with like singles, which is purely soft, silky superwash. So I was really enjoying the change in texture, and like the really like it connects you to like the history of knitting almost, and like the roots of knitting before we had all this fancy super soft hand painted yarn, and we just had like we had more rustic woolly yarns. I'm also starting to appreciate solids, as you can tell, and the boyfriend's Christmas sweater is a solid, and some of my speckles are becoming closer to solids, and I'm starting to appreciate the value of a single tone. Not all my yarn needs to be woo, you know? So I had thought about stash busting for the cat bells because I have some acrylic worsteds, but then the cat bells also has some lace. It's like a garter lace pattern, and I was like, I can't really block acrylic to make sure the lace looks good. Like, I know there are ways to kind of do it, but not to the degree I probably will want to when it's done. So I was like, I guess I need wool. And I kept going back and looking at Heritage, or Briggs & Little Heritage in this particular colorway, like, for 2 weeks, every second day I was looking at it. So yesterday, I was like, that's it, I'm doing it. It's also very cost effective. It's $8 Canadian for a 215 yard skein. So for a full skein of worsted, it's $8 Canadian. If you're in the States, that's like nothing. So I bought mine from my local yarn store, Stash. And I bought it yesterday afternoon, and it was here this morning. They ship so fast, it's insane. But I bought the brown heather colorway because it's a cardigan. It has to be somewhat neutral. I need to be able to wear it with other things and not just plain white t-shirts. Now, the camera is kind of picking up the depth of color, but not in the same way that it has in person. Oh, that's pretty accurate. So it is a brown. It is a very red-orange brown, but then it's like heathered with purples, teals, oranges, reds. It's got such this depth to it that I could not stop staring at it on the website, because the website really highlights the depth. But yeah, it's very, very heathered with, like, right in there's that bright green spot hanging out in the back there. Yeah. So it's very much like a grungy, grubby, swampy brown, and it has so many colors subtly heathered into it that like whatever I wear with it, it will pull one of those colors. So it'll go with probably like most things I own. I have a similar cardigan that's store bought. It was like a tan brown, but it's marled with yellow, black, red, and white, I think. And I wear a ton of that, so I figured this would be a similar vein. I'm kind of tempted to. I'm headed over to the boyfriend's house for the weekend because of studying. We now kind of do like house swaps, but only on weekends. And I need something to knit there that's not like his Christmas gift. And I've kind of told myself I'm only going to work on Christmas gifts. Or Christmas gifts, and then the knit along once that starts on October 9th. But this brown is very tempting, and I feel like a garter worsted weight cardigan would get done so fast. But we'll see. I don't know what the plan is for that. But it is 1:54 now, and my lab is at 2, so that's all I wanted to talk about. My gift knit mittens, how I'm going to only knit worsted weight socks from now on, so I plan to do all my other sock sets the same way, hold them double and knit worsted weight socks. My sweaters are coming along slowly but surely. They might all get put on hold until like November, who knows. I'm going to knit the make along. But yeah, it feels good to be back from hiatus, and I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. I know things are starting to pick up again in certain places, and I want everyone to know my hearts go out to you, and I hope you find little bits of peace and quiet, little bits of craft time, just whatever it does, whatever you need to get through the day, whether it's ordering too much yarn or drinking all the coffee on the planet, whatever you need to do to get it done, that's for you. No judgment here. But as a busy student, I will bid you adieu now and see you next week or 2 weeks from now. I'm not decided. But happy knitting, and I shall see you again.